Hey everyone, Fortune Firm here. My name is Zach Perry, and today I am very, very excited to introduce to you a guest we have on the show, Dolf De Roos. Most of you probably recognize him long before you'll recognize me. If you know anything about real estate at all, you know the name Dolf De Roos. He is a New York Times bestseller. He's got over 20 published books. He has run the circuit with Robert Kiyosaki, with Tony Robbins, with Donald Trump, all the big names. He's taught in 27 plus countries, right? So Dolf De Roos is one of the biggest names in the real estate industry, and we are very fortunate here at the Fortune Firm to have him on our show and be able to pick his brain a little bit and really delve into one of the masters of the area, the real estate area. So thank you so much for joining us and giving us of your time and your expertise.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Yes,
thank you.
Well, a pleasure for me anyway, but I appreciate you being nice. You're the star here. So I have a few questions for you, but
Sure.
Before we get into like the real estate of it, I want to know a little bit more about you because you and I have met a couple times, and every time you walk into my office, in fact, you came into my previous office, and when you leave, the staff talks about how fun you are and you make everyone smile. And so I want the audience to get a feel for some of that. So tell us a little bit about where you're from, your journey to get where you are, and then I may interrupt you and ask you questions.
Okay, well, I'm not quite sure where I'm from. I was born in New Zealand, so they tell me. But I ended up going to school in 6 countries. And so right now I'm not sure where I'm from and which nationality I have. I have multiple passports. I sometimes wonder whether I'm a citizen of the world or just a mutt, and both are probably valid.
Okay.
But once you get a taste of doing things in different parts of the world, you sort of become addicted to it. And it's not because you just want to be on a plane. I don't enjoy being on a plane, although I don't mind it either. A lot of people say, isn't it horrible with those 14-hour flights where you're stuck in a seat? And I say, no, on the contrary. When I'm hungry, they give me something to eat. If I'm thirsty, they give me something to drink. I can read a book. I can fall asleep. No one bothers you if you fall asleep at 11 a.m. It's not 11 a.m. in a different time zone anyway. So it's kind of delightful. No emails, no texting, no faxes. Well, you don't know what a fax is, but anyway, they're things we used to send to each other. Yeah.
I saw that in Back to the Future 2, they had one of those.
Exactly,
okay,
yes.
Yeah, the fax
So it's quite delightful. So I'm not sure where I'm from, but the main thing, whatever you do, and we all want to make money at some stage, but you've got to have fun. Zach, if you can't put your head down on your pillow at night and say, today was such a blast that I'm looking forward to tomorrow, then change what you're doing.
That is really good advice. In fact, life, we don't spend a lot of time together, but life is more fun with you. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's more fun with you in it. Today,
really
I'm
nice
having
to
more
hear.
fun than I had yesterday.
Well, cool.
So, what got you into real estate? I mean, were you traveling because of real estate, or did real estate, was it born from the travel? What?
This camera.
We were
Oh man, and we were on such a
were on
roll.
a
You were
roll.
doing great, and now we have to. Do we?
Same question again and then keep going.
Do we have to start again from
We
the
don't have to
beginning?
start over, no.
I know. I'm just teasing you. Is the memory card full?
I'm just gonna.
It's the memory. It's like me. I've got a photographic memory, but I forget to put film in. You know.
This camera tells you within like seconds. Like if you're recording, it doesn't keep like battery like percentage on.
But the good thing about this is we get to clap again.
Yeah, that's right. We get to clap again. That's the good thing about it.
Right. Okay. All right, let's clap again.
All right, so I have a question. You travel all the time. I know you're into real estate. So did one come from the other? Do you travel because of real estate, or did you get into real estate because of all the travel, or neither?
Oh gosh, that's sort of a very short question, but it needs a long answer. So I came from a family that thought to do well in life, you have to study hard and get a degree, because a degree gives you a job, and a job gives you a career, and a career gives you tenure, and that's how you're going to be financially successful. So without thinking, when I finished school, off I went to university. But during my first week at university, I looked around me at the people with the degrees, right? The tutors, the lecturers, the professors, and it occurred to me that
Where was this, by the way?
This was in New Zealand at that stage. It occurred to me they were not uniformly rich. They tended to have rather modest clothes, and they lived in tiny little houses and got around in little clunkers of cars. And I thought there's something wrong with this formula that degrees equates to wealth. So I decided to make a study at the tender age of 17 to find out what do the rich have in common. Thinking, perhaps somewhat naively, if I could identify 30 or 40 things that they did have in common, and if I could emulate them, that I'd have a good chance at being rich, right? Well, the challenge was I could hardly find anything that the rich had in common. It wasn't age, it wasn't gender, it wasn't religious belief, it wasn't whether you're the firstborn or family, lastborn, immigrant or not. I could only find two things. And one of them is that almost without exception, the rich either made their money or held their wealth in real estate. And I thought, if that's all it is, I can do that. So when I was 17 and I looked about 12, I set out to buy a property. And I found one, I did all my analysis, I wrote up a spiel, I went to a bank to apply for a mortgage. And
When you were 17?
17.
Okay.
And I stopped talking, I finished, and the bank manager leaned forward and he said, "Are you done?" And I thought, that's an odd question.
Rude
But I said, "Yeah, I
question.
finished." And he said, "This is a hoax, isn't it? This is a prank." He thought it was a university prank. Now, here's the great thing. If I'd said, "Well, obviously I'm not cut out for this real estate game, I better try something else," who knows what might have happened. But I persevered because I knew it was a great deal. So I went to bank after bank after bank, improving my spiel each time, until eventually a bank manager said, "You know what, I'll take a chance on you." And I'd much rather have heard him say, "Oh, that's a hot deal, I wish I'd found it, yes, I'll fund it." But I was happy with, "I'll take a chance on it." So that was my first property.
So you bought your first property at 17.
Yeah, 4 units, 4 flats as we called
Okay.
them. And at the end of the first month, I'd collected rent from the 4 units, and it was more money than that month's mortgage allocation and insurance allocation, repairs and maintenance. I had made money and I hadn't worked for it, and I thought, I've got to do this again.
So how did you qualify for a loan?
Well, you know, we had 4 trading banks as they're called. I went to each bank applying for a student loan, and fortunately they didn't ask me if I was going to the other banks because I would have felt obligated to be honest. So I got the maximum loan I could from each bank, which was $4,000, and I got a mortgage for the rest.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So when you said you made a list, you were trying to keep a list of all the things the wealthy people had in common.
Correct.
And you found 2.
Yes.
Did you actually physically write this list?
Yes, of
And
course.
do you still have that?
Well, not the original, no.
Because that would be something cool to stick on your wall.
Yes, it's true. But we had a massive earthquake down in Christchurch years after I'd left. But anything I still had that tended to disappear, which is a shame.
So that's how you got into real estate.
Yes, and then I finished a bachelor's degree, and the university came to me and they said, "Gosh, 4 years for a bachelor's, only 1 more year for a master's. Why don't you do it?" And I said, "Because," and I didn't have a reason, so I did it. And halfway through that, they said, "Dolf, you're doing so well. Why don't you switch to doing a PhD?" And I said, "Because," and again, I didn't have a reason. So I ended up doing that. So there's a big lesson here. Make sure you know why you do what you do. Otherwise, you'll do what other people want you to do, right?
Or you're going to end up with several degrees.
Right. So I spent 8 years at university. They say there are 3 kinds of student: part-time, full-time, and eternal. I was the eternal kind. And I finished with a little piece of paper that said PhD. Most people don't know what it means. Most people with a PhD don't know what it means. But think back to my parents. Degrees equates to wealth. Do you think they were proud?
Sure.
Of course they were. And they were sitting by the phone waiting for me to announce the acceptance of a job. And you know, JOB is an acronym for just over broke, right?
Sure.
And I must confess, I went to 2 job interviews. And at the end of the second interview, I was offered a job at $32,000 a year, which back then, which is like in the last millennium, it was a lot of money. But unfortunately for them, the week before, I just completed a real estate deal that netted me $35,000. And I remember thinking to myself, why would anyone in his or her right mind work for 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, turning up every morning at 8 o'clock saying, "Hey boss, here I am, what do you want me to do for you today?" For 32 lousy thousand, when in 1 week you can make 35 and take the rest of the year off, or do it again.
So where are you in the world at this point?
I'm in Las Vegas.
Really?
Yes.
So your journey started in, your education journey started in New Zealand. You went, through your wherever.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yes. So,
But
so
when you get your PhD and after that you get offered a job and you just close your first real estate deal, where are you?
Oh, I'm in New Zealand. Sorry, I thought you meant where
Were
am
you
I
there the
right
whole
now?
time?
No, I used to flit around a lot.
Okay.
I'm very mobile.
So what got you out of New Zealand then?
It just work because I didn't take that job and I got into technology transfer. I'd take an invention from one part of the world and place it somewhere else. And that was wildly exciting. It sort of drew on my engineering background a bit. But all the time I was doing these real estate deals. And I noticed a pattern over time that I tended to make money in real estate and I'd fritter it away on all these other deals and projects. And more I just focused on the real estate. And then eventually these agents came to me, real estate agents, and they said, "How do you keep managing to buy properties? You don't seem as though you have money." And I said, "No, you do it without money. I mean, any fool with 20 million in their bank can buy a $20 million portfolio. The trick is how to buy one when you don't have any money, right?" So they said, "Well, why don't you teach us what you're looking for? It might help us bring you good deals." And I thought, well, they're not very good at selling them, so I should do that just to. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I didn't prepare anything. I just went to this group of real estate agents one Thursday night. I remember the street it was on, number 8 Nelson Street. And I said, all right, here's the deal. And I talked to them. And they said at the end, that's really great. Would you do it again next week? We'll bring more people. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I went there the next week thinking it would be my final talk. And at the end of it, they said, well, that was really great. Would you do it again next week? And I thought, no, I can see the pattern here. They'll have me here every week. Mm-hmm. So I thought, how can I mass produce this? So I thought I should write it down. Mm-hmm. So I wrote things down, and it became bigger and bigger, ended up being a book. And I took it to the publishers, and I said, I've got a book on real estate. Are you interested? And they looked at it and said, no, it's a niche market. It would never sell. Well, who am I, right? They are the publishers. They know. So I took their word as gospel. Now, I did sell it. I used to have an order form in the back of the book, and word got out. And the publishers called me a year later and said, we've heard from the printer that you've sold more books than are required for bestseller status, and it's not even in a bookstore. I said, wow, I never knew. Thanks for telling me. They said, no, wait. Can we still publish it? So that's how I got started in the book.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Your first book?
My first book.
And what was the title of that one?
Making Money in Residential Real Estate.
That's cool. So your degree is not in real estate.
No, it's in electrical engineering.
But you were doing real estate before you had your degree. I mean, you were 17 when you started doing that.
Right.
So you have more experience, or you've been doing real estate longer, well, than you've been using your degree. Do you even use your degree?
Well, I mean, that's a mute point almost, because people often say, what a waste of 8 years to get a PhD in electrical engineering. I worked on military sonar systems. It's not a trivial topic.
Sure.
What a waste of time. And I say, no, on the contrary, because what you learn at university isn't facts and figures. Everything I learned has been made redundant by new technology.
Sure.
We learned the operating characteristics of valves, and I don't mean faucet type valves, I mean valve radio type valves. And then there became transistors and integrated circuits and LSI, large scale integrated circuits, and then ASICs, application specific integrated circuits, blah, blah, blah. All be made, you don't learn that. What you learn is creative ways of solving problems. And what I do love about engineering is it's not an analysis subject, like you study English or chemistry. If you analyze what's there, here's a sentence, subject, verb, object, pull it to pieces, label it, put it all back together. No, engineering is, here's the problem, create the solution. And real estate is all about, here's the problem, create the solution. Let's fast forward to today, if you don't mind, back to Las Vegas. We've got a situation where a lot of hotels have lower occupancies than they used to. Mm-hmm. World average about 68%, currently around 13%. Sure. Many of them can't meet their mortgage obligations, so they're going to go into a form of foreclosure. Would you buy a hotel? Well, not if you're going to get the same 13% occupancy. But my theory is the population of most Western nations, with the exclusion of Japan, is increasing at a rapid rate. But the proportion of elderly, people with gray hair, no, let me rephrase that. The proportion, why are you laughing?
Or with no hair?
Or no hair. The proportion of elderly is increasing at an even greater rate. So the demand for elderly care facilities, assisted living, geriatric care, Alzheimer's care, senior living, is going through the roof. They're paying $7,500 a month. While I'm sitting here, there's a conference in Phoenix where I'm based on elderly care. It's an annual conference there. So why not convert these hotels, which you can buy sometimes for a lot less than they were a year ago, and then convert pairs of rooms into assisted living units. Keep one bedroom and bathroom as is, turn one bathroom into a kitchen, all the plumbing and electric is there, and turn the other bedroom into a living room. Now, for elderly care, you need elevator access. Well, hotels have that. You need a communal kitchen facility. Hotels have that. So they'd make a perfect conversion into elderly care.
So you're not an electrical engineer, but you are using the knowledge and your degree in an unconventional way in your chosen field.
Yeah, and more people should think laterally, and think, well, how can we turn this to our advantage? Most people see a problem, and the trick is to how do you turn their problem into a solution that you help them with?
So have you found that that's been something that served you all along the way, not just in your most recent project?
All the time, yeah.
Okay, very good. I have a lot of more questions for you, but we're going to wrap this one up. We'll do it in a second segment.
Okay.
We're going to ask you questions about what's hot on the market, what recommendations you would make for people getting into real estate. So for our viewers, stay tuned, watch our other video. We'll hear more from Dolf De Roos. Thank you very much for being here and sharing your story with us. And for the rest of you, like us, subscribe us, stay tuned, and may your fortune be with you always.